Well, folks, it's officially over. The Seattle Seahawks have been eliminated from playoff contention after the Commanders' overtime win against the Atlanta Falcons. And Seattle will now head into Week 18 with nothing to play for except for potentially getting their 10th win of the season. Welcome into this edition of Seattle Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you on the road, coming at you from my parents' house as I just spent the holidays here, about to head back to the studio tomorrow. But unfortunate news that this ends for the Hawks. We knew it was a long shot for Seattle after the game that occurred last night where the Rams ended up beating the Arizona Cardinals. There was a very narrow path that came down to strength of record and strength of victory, and you still had to beat the Rams next week, but that window has closed completely as the Rams have clinched up the NFC West division title, and obviously there was no path through the wild card as well. So with that, the season is effectively over for Seattle at this point in time, and it's interesting that it all came crashing down. The final sayonara was by way of our old friend Dan Quinn and the Washington Commanders, who will begin the NFL playoffs here after their win against the Atlanta Falcons. We'll break it all down, share all our reaction coming up in just a moment. But folks, want to remind you to subscribe to Seattle Seahawks Today. Even when we're on the road and, I got a couple off days here and there, whatever it may be, we're still bringing you content here on the channel. So I know it's late and everything, but if you guys can do us a favor and subscribe to the channel and help us out as we continue to grow. I know the off season's here, but we have plenty to talk about over the next several weeks when we talk about draft targets. We're going to be live for the Fiesta Bowl on Tuesday night. We're still going to do the watch party coming up this week as well for the Seahawks and Rams. Your one-stop shop for all things Seahawks. Subscribe now for free. You'll be glad you did. Mike Macdonald's first season ends without a playoff appearance, and one that they had a chance to be a playoff team. They were in the driver's seat at one point in time. They controlled their own destiny into the postseason. A 4-game winning streak after the bye, and then you lose 2 games back-to-back there to the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, they got outplayed in every way against Green Bay. The Vikings game is one that could have gone either way. But I think when you look back on this year of the missed opportunity for Seattle, everyone's going to point to that New York Giants game. There was just no excuse, no reason to be losing at home to the awful New York Giants. And if you take care of business there, if you take care of business in the Vikings game, or a couple different things go your way, we're talking about a totally different scenario. Even the Rams game, for example, a game that Seattle could have won, we'd be talking about this team being in the postseason. They were that close, but ultimately they come up short. And if they lose to the LA Rams this upcoming week, it would be the 3rd straight 9-8 season for Seattle here. I think when you look at this season is kind of twofold, right? You do have some building blocks, some things to feel good about of the direction of this Seattle Seahawks organization for the next several years to come. When you factor in the defense, how much they've dramatically grown from what they were the previous couple of seasons, with the addition of Ernest Jones, with the emergence of Leonard Williams, with Devin Witherspoon coming to his own. Those are some great building blocks there. But then on the flip side of things, you look at the offensive line that we saw this year was the worst offensive line we've seen for Seattle maybe ever. The quarterback position, you have some question marks about what you're going to do to address that for the long term. Is Geno Smith going to be back next year? Does he get a long-term contract extension? Do you draft his replacement? Do you go get a veteran? Also, you got to figure out some other things like, what do you do about DK Metcalf here? Does DK get a long-term deal? Or do you trade him and not pay him the money that he would command on the open market? There's some major question marks remaining. And then I think you have to look in the mirror of John Schneider here. We were at this time a year ago when Seattle missed the playoffs and they ultimately moved on from Pete Carroll. And the big reason why was that they felt that this team had underachieved with the talent that was there, that they did not meet the expectations of what they thought this team was capable of, and they make a change and go from Pete Carroll to Mike Macdonald. And now we sit here today with a similar result to what we did last season, and you've had a coaching change. You've made, a lot of changes compared to what you were at a season ago, but you have the same result here. And you have to start to think, well, was it really then coaching, or does it come down to how this roster was assembled and what John Schneider has done here and what John Schneider has not done to fix this offensive line? For this offensive line to get dramatically worse here, I think you have to look in the mirror at John Schneider. But then a question that you then have to raise as well, okay, typically we see where coaches and general managers are paired together, where they're thought of, okay, these two are in it for the long haul, that it's a pairing here. Do you want to potentially separate John Schneider from Mike Macdonald? Or is the long-term plan that you see this out of the plan of those two together? Those are questions that have to be raised here. And I think looking back at this, you look at this season, there were some very good moments. I think the San Francisco win was a big deal to finally get over the hump and beat that Niners team. Some of the things this team accomplished, starting with a 3-0 record, but then losing 3 straight. You went through the highs and lows this year. It's, I think, a mixed bag. I think that's the perfect way to describe 2024 for this Seattle Seahawks team and this organization, a mixed bag. And ultimately, they come up short and will not be competing for a championship this upcoming postseason. What's your one-word reaction to the end of the road for the Seattle Seahawks? What is your one-word reaction? I'm going to cheat, use a hyphen, go mixed bag. Give me your one-word reaction in the comment section. Let me know. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the place to go for daily fantasy made easy. Here's how it works. Choose 2 or more players on any given category. Get the choice of more or less, whether you're talking fantasy points in football, rebounds in basketball, goals in hockey, all sorts of different categories to choose from. And on Prize Picks right now, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. And on top of that, folks, you can play $5 and they'll give you $50 to play for free. You don't even have to win to get the money. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS, promo code CLNS. The link is in the chat, in the comments, and description of today's video. Prize Picks, proud partner of Seattle Seahawks today. So, I look at this campaign for what happened for Seattle here, and you just can't help but think the what if. And I know what some of you are going to say immediately, that, hey, you just beat the Chicago Bears 6-3. All right? This team, many would say, even if they were in the postseason, they weren't going to do much, that they weren't going to make a big run at all and compete for a championship here. And what I would say to you to counter that point is, I'd rather my team die trying to put their best foot forward and at least have the chance. Because when you get to the postseason, all the records go out. Everybody is 0-0 at that point going forward. And for me, I know that this Seahawks team was very flawed, that they had a lot of issues, and they have a lot of things that they need to address this offseason. But my goodness, I would rather sit here with a chance to at least go compete, at least give it a shot and see how things go. Look at the Green Bay Packers last year. They were the 7th seed. They were not expected to beat the Dallas Cowboys in the opening round of the playoffs, and they kicked their ass there in Arlington. Then they almost beat the San Francisco 49ers, who went on to play for the Super Bowl. You just never know. So, with that said, yes, I understand that the chances of this team winning a title or even getting there, competing there, were very slim. But I at least just wanted to see this team get a chance. But even with that said, now I look at the direction of this organization going forward. I think you have the right coach. I know it kind of sucks that it's Dan Quinn, of all people, who obviously wanted the Seahawks job, got turned down, and they chose Mike Macdonald. There is something almost poetic of sorts that it was Dan Quinn that ended that. And, there has been some second guessing among the 12s if you made the right hire or not. But I like what I've seen from Mike Macdonald. With that said, I don't know about Ryan Grubb or Scott Huff, the offensive line coach. I think you're going to have to look into some changes there in that regard. You have a lot of self-intervention that needs to occur. I think you have some building blocks. You have some things that you can be excited about. The emergence of JSN this year. You got two good running backs in Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet. We got to figure out about Tyler Lockett's future. Obviously, he's got a huge cap hit coming up next year. He's likely not coming back. What are you going to do to replace him as far as that goes? So we'll see how this all ultimately goes from here. But as much as this sucks, what I would tell you is I do feel more optimistic about the direction of Seahawks football than I've been in a long time because of what we've seen from this defense, what Mike Macdonald has done to fix this defense. It is a lot easier in the National Football League to fix an offense than it is to fix a defense. And you've taken care of the defense. Now you need to go get an offensive line that can actually compete, that can hold their own and invest in that offensive line. You need to figure out what you want to do with Geno in that quarterback situation, and then you go from there. But at the end of the day, it's over for Seattle. This is the end of the road at this point, and it's not what we hoped for, but we move on from here and see where things go. Let's ask you guys, how would you grade this season for the Seattle Seahawks, Mike Macdonald's first season? We said at the beginning of the year that the expectation was somewhere between 9 or 10 wins, and so you were around that range, but it was still incomplete. There were still some missed opportunities here. I think a C+ feels about right. It's a passing grade, but it's not what it could have been for this Seahawks team. Give me your grade in the comments section. Appreciate y'all joining us here on Seahawks Today. Plenty more coverage coming up throughout the rest of the week. I'm headed back to the studio tomorrow. We'll be live for the Fiesta Bowl on Tuesday night. We'll be live next Sunday for Seahawks and Rams, the regular season finale. We will see you then. Tyler Jones here. Thanks for joining us here on this special edition of Seattle Seahawks Today.